Moin Leute, Harry wieder am Start. Today I'm bringing you guys a banger video because today we are going to learn how to EV like a pro. Now, I know some of you guys have been waiting for years for this video. Some of you guys probably have never watched a video from me in your life. So let's get right into it. Today I'm going to present to you the method that you can use to make really good competitive EV spreads fast and reliably, and the EV spreads are gonna be really good. So in order to make life easy for you, I actually made a tool that you can use, and it's gonna work similarly to your team builder in Pokemon Showdown or the damage calc in Pokemon Showdown, in which, like, obviously you still need to make the EVs or the teams yourself. However, it will make it way easier. So let's get right into it. This right here, what you see, is the PDF thing, the PDF document with all the information that you need to make the best EV spreads. So yeah, here's the prologue. Feel free to pause the video and read it, or just read it in the document. And here's the contents. Today we're going to talk about what are EVs, why all the effort, how do I make EV spreads, how do I use this spreadsheet, and then we're going to go over the spreadsheet and I'm going to be explaining as much as possible so you guys will know how to use the spreadsheet and so on and so forth, and hope you guys will not have any questions. If you guys want to skip any of these parts, don't worry, you can just skip. In the video description there are going to be timestamps. So let's get right into it. What are EVs? Well, most of you probably know, but just in case you don't. So Pokemon's EVs are called effort values, because we have to train and put a lot of effort into it, or whatever, doesn't really matter. So every Pokemon can get up to 510 EVs, but the maximum in each stat is 252, right? So that means you can have 252 in one stat, 252 in another stat, and then 4 EVs on top of it, because the last two won't make a difference. And you can, however, mix it as much as you want. So you can have 100 EVs in this stat, 100 in this stat, 252 here, and then 56 or whatever in another stat, right? Also, what is going to be part of these EV spreads is going to be the nature. So the natures you probably know, like element nature, timid nature, whatever, right? These boost a stat by 10% and then lower another stat by 10%. So for example, adamant nature makes the attack 10% higher and the special attack 10% lower. Why go through all the effort? Well, of course, it's really cool to make your Pokemon big and strong, unlike me. I mean, I've been working on myself a bit, but anyways. Obviously, the main reason why I do it is not to flex, even though that is a pretty good reason, but it's because you get a competitive advantage. However, that is quite difficult, right? But today, not anymore. Not for you, because you found this hidden gem of a channel, maybe, or not. Subscribe if you want to, whatever, right? Wink, wink. Anyways, yeah, and that's pretty much it. You get a competitive advantage. Today, I'm gonna show you how. So how do you make EV spreads? Well, it's easy. You just put in the EVs for your Pokemon. Easy. Now, but obviously it's a bit more deep than that, because you want the optimal EV spreads. Now, what that means can mean a different thing for anyone, right? Optimal EV spreads, that's like an art form, you know. I mean, I can sit here and tell you how to use like a brush, for example, right? But you're still gonna be the one swinging it. That's what this video is for, right? I just give you the tools and you have to execute, right? So obviously, in order to make optimal EV spreads, you're gonna use the damage calculator, the Pokemon Showdown team builder, and also Pikalytics, because you will see what the best Pokemon are. And then with the help of this spreadsheet, you are going to see what EV spread gives you the most winning chances against the most popular Pokemon. Or if you use meme teams or whatever, you can just use meme stuff, I don't care, but the spreadsheet will still be very good. So how do I use it? Well, pretty simple. You just use it. Nah, just kidding. I mean, sorry. Basically, the spreadsheet is there to ask you questions, right? It asks you how fast do you want your Pokemon to be, for example, and you will have to know the answer. That is where the skill comes in, right? Because if you don't know the answers to these questions, you're not going to be able to make good EV spreads. Let's say, for example, you have an Incineroar, for example, right? And you will want to figure out how fast your Incineroar will be. So a spreadsheet will ask you how fast you want your Incineroar to be, and you will say, oh, I want it to be faster than opposing Incineroars, and I want to speed creep and put 20 EVs in speed, for example, right? Awesome. And then you will want to lift 2 Moonblasts from Flutter mains with a Citrus Berry. So when you put in your Incineroar in the damage calc and you find out how much HP and special defense investment you want. Pretty simple overall. So let's get right into it. So, what nature do you want your Pokemon to have? That is the first question and probably one of the most important questions because nature determines a lot about your EV spread. However, in this first step, it's important that the nature that you put in at first is going to be subject to change later. So, for offensive Pokemon, you just put Jolly for physical attackers and Timid for special attackers because Jolly is going to lower your special attack, which you're not going to be using, and Timid is going to be lowering your physical attack, which you're not going to be using if you're using special attackers with this. So for defensive EV spreads, there's like a little trick you can use. It's basically you just put the nature in the highest like defensive stat, because that way you will get most out of your EV spread, right? Dude, it's so hot right here, goddamn. Right? Because if you boost its stat by 10%, you're obviously going to be boosting it more the higher the stat is. If you boost 10 by 10%, you're going to get 11 if my math is correct, and if you use 100 by 10%, you're going to get 110, which is going to be like a 19 numbered math, man. I suck at math, whatever. So yeah, again, this is just for now, but it's going to help you in the damage calculator later. So put in the nature first is my recommendation. Now step 2. That's what I was talking about. Speed, in my opinion, is the most important EV spread, right? Because with all other EVs you put in, there's always going to be a chance that these EVs do something or do nothing, because if you're putting in EVs, you're either doing it to reduce damage or to do more damage, right? And as you guys know, every time a Pokemon attacks, there's like a dice that gets rolled, or like RNG, right? That determines how much damage your attack will do. It can do up to like 100% of its damage or only 85%. And every EV you put in will just higher your chances, will all get you in or outside of range of this 185 threshold, right? However, with speed, no such thing exists. So it's really important that you have the right speed, because whatever speed you have, that's the speed that determines if you are going to move before your opponent in every single game, which is way more deciding than having like a 10% higher chance to live or whatever, right? That's why I think you should do speed first. So it's simple. You just you just figure out, do you have speed control on your team? Do you have Trick Room? Do you have Tailwind? Do you have Icy Wind? And then obviously you go to the damage calculator and you look, okay, I want this Pokemon to be faster than this Pokemon in Tailwind. For example, Flutter Energy, Flutter Main without a booster energy is going to be hitting 205 speed. So if you want your Garchomp, for example, under Tailwind towards speed non-booster energy Flutter Main, you just gotta be 206 speed, and you've gotta figure out how many EVs you wanna put into speed. Next up, we got EV bumps. So what the fuck are EV bumps? First of all, I mean, obviously most of you probably know, but if you have a nature that boosts your stats, let's say an adamant nature is a good example, then whenever you put in 4 EVs, obviously the stat of your attack of your Pokemon will go up by 1, right? So you put in 4 EVs and you get your stat boosted by 1. You put in 8 EVs, you get your stat boosted by 2. However, it can happen that, oh god, I'm sweating so hard. It can happen that, dude, you know what, I'm gonna turn this on. I hope the noise isn't too annoying. I really wanted to record this video without having a thing on, but sorry guys. So, where was I? Now, if you have an EV bump, that basically means that if you put in 4 EVs, you actually get 2 points instead of 1, which is what an EV bump is. Now, there are multiple ways to figure out like what an EV bump is and how you can get to the EV bumps, but I would recommend, if you have a boosting nature, just scroll the slider on Pokemon Showdown until you get 2 points instead of 1, and then the next EV bump will be 100 points higher, and then the next EV bump will be even 100 points higher, right? So this is something that you can look for after you put in the nature. It's not gonna be the most important thing you can do. You can feel free to skip this step, because it's more important to get these guaranteed knockouts or live attacks guaranteed. But oftentimes you will end up investing way more EVs than you will need, and EV bumps are probably the best way to optimally EV if you want to, right? Next up, offensive stats. This is another one of these stats that's not really that important, because obviously it's really important to knock out opposing Pokemon, but many players, including myself in the past, have made this mistake where just go max attack, max special attack, adamant nature, modest nature. Especially newer players are gonna do this, when oftentimes you really don't need it. Especially on Pokemon that already have a high attack, like Katana for example. You can just run an adamant nature for attack investment and still hit almost as hard as like a adamant nature max attack, right? So you really want to figure out how much attacking stats you actually need to get these important knockouts that you want. So that way you don't waste EVs that you could have put in bulk, right? And obviously one thing that should also be said is that if you have a mixed attacker, like a Iron Valiant and Single for example, there aren't really much examples in VGC. You wanna put the nature into the stat that leaves you least vulnerable to priority moves, because that's the highest chance of you getting value out of the nature, right? Alright. Next up, HP. Now HP is obviously it's been really important, especially in dynamics formats, because you can double your HP stat. But the HP stats, the HP your Pokemon has, they will determine how bulky it is, as well as the special defense and the defense stat also determine, right? So what that means is if you put in stats into HP or EVs into HP, you will actually be bulkier on both the special as well as the physical defending side, which is why most of the time it is smart to put in EVs into HP first and then afterwards to invest into the other stats. There are some exceptions to this, for example Torkoal, because Torkoal oftentimes dies to special attacks even if you have max HP investment, so you can run max defense to get more value out of it. But what we really want to figure out is how much HP investment we can afford, because we really want to get the most out of the bulk out of our Pokemon, right? Because that's where our EV spreads really shine. And to do this, first of all, you put 4 EVs into HP and 4, sorry, not 4 into HP, I mean you can also do that, but you put 4 into defense and 4 into special defense, because this will make your Pokemon just slightly more bulky than if you were to put 8 into HP, right? And then you can figure out how much you want to put into the HP stat of your Pokemon. Now me personally, I don't like going over the HP stat of 200, so I like to go 199, but that's just a me personal like kind of quirk thing. I'm so special, right? But the actual number you really shouldn't go over is 219, because that's called a diminishing return line. So basically what that means, if you have a Pokemon like Guslord for example, I know I'm talking a lot about these Ultra Beasts that aren't in the game, but I mean there aren't really as many good Pokemon with these special EV spreads that you can do, so bear with me. If you have a Guslord for example, or like a Chansey or Blissey or whatever, and you put it all into HP, it's oftentimes gonna be better to actually invest into defense and special defense instead, because the HP stat is just so high, you don't get as much value out of boosting it, if that makes sense. So I mean, obviously if you have like a 200 HP and like 5 defense Blissey for example, if you want to be more defensive, it gets you more out of your EVs to put it in defense, right? It's a bit of an extreme example, but that's basically just what you gotta watch out for. Otherwise, I would recommend to you guys just choose the damage calc, put in HP. If you wanna put in max HP and then move on to the defenses, that's really important. However, don't forget your item, because what item you hold can actually really influence your EV spread to a certain extent, right? Because there are obviously different items that interact with your HP stat. For example, the Life Orb, which makes you lose HP, or Leftovers, which makes you gain HP, that are really gonna be important, right? Dude, now I probably know how my opponents feel when they fight me, dude. I'm such a salty sweater right now, it's crazy. But anyways, bear with me, guys. So, what item do you have? If you have a Life Orb, you will want your HP stat, like the actual number, not the EVs, just the number of your final HP of your Pokemon, and with a 9, because Life Orb obviously deals 10% recoil to you, right? So if, however, Pokemon is a bit quirky in the way it's like rounding numbers. It doesn't work like actual math. It's like its own Pokemon made up its own math. Don't take it out of context, but basically what that means is if you have a Pokemon with, let's say, 100 HP, it's gonna take 10 HP of recoil, right? However, if you have a Pokemon with 99 HP, it will only take 9 HP of recoil. So by having less HP in total, you will actually be more bulky, which is really interesting. For example, you can use a Rayquaza with only 30 HP IVs? Yeah, IVs. Sorry, English is confusing. In order to take less life of recoil, for example. Next up is the Flame Orb, because Flame Orb obviously burns you, right? So if you have a Guts Pokemon, a Flame Orb, like Conkelda or something, I know there aren't really any Guts Pokemon in the game right now, but this video will also be the same in the future, right? So when I come back eventually, you will know. Then you want a number that is actually divisible by 16, right? It is the same with leftovers, because that, oh sorry, wait, you will not have, sorry. You will have a number that is 1 lower than a number that is divisible by 16 for the Flame Orb, because that way you take the least recoil from a burn possible, or the least damage from a burn possible. However, with leftovers, you actually want the number to be exactly divisible by 16, so that way it will be, you will get the most recover out of it, because there's no rounding down that is going to happen, right? And now, oh, yeah, now we are going to go to the field conditions. This is the last thing you want to consider while making your HP EV spreads, because obviously Rillaboom is going to be pretty popular, and also other conditions like sand, for example, are going to be really important. However, now when we're nerfed or buffed snow, depending on how you want to look at things, it's not going to be as relevant. But if you really want to optimize your whole EV spread, think about these field conditions. So, like I said, you either have grassy terrain or you have sandstorm, and similar to the Flame Orb and the leftovers, you either want a number that is 1 lower than a number that is divisible by 16, or you want a number that is exactly divisible by 16, because that way you will either take the least amount of sand chip possible, or you will maximize the most HP through grassy terrain. And now we can move on to probably the coolest stat with defenses. This is where your EV spread really shines. I mean, obviously at this point you probably already have a really optimized EV spread, but this is really what it comes down to. Optimal EV spreads are really mostly about saving as much EVs as possible to pump them all into these defensive, so your Pokemon can be super fucking thick, just like God of War, right? So, how much defense or special investment do you need? Well, simple. You just go to a damage calculator. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You just go to a damage calculator and you look, okay, Fluttermane's Moonblast does this much damage, okay, Zacian's Behemoth Blade does this much damage, can I live a double up, for example, right? Can I live Urshifu's Surging Strikes with a Mystic Water? Can I live, well, let's say you have an Amoonguss, for example, right? Let's say your Amoonguss goes for Terra Water. Can you live the Ice move from Jinpao into an E-Speed from Dragonite, for example, right? Things like this. This is really what it all comes down to. However, there's one last pro tip if you are if you are not willing to put in as much time and you want to save some time, or if you just want to mess with your opponents a little bit, is to put 60 EVs into each defensive stat, right? Because that's gonna lower the opponent's calc by about 10%. So let's say you're using Pokemon like a Golden Go or a Fluttermane. You can just put 60 into defense, 60 into special defense, maybe even 60 into HP if you can afford it. And all of a sudden, they're not gonna knock you out, right? Because obviously the opponent did the same thing that you did. They want to knock out Fluttermane, they want to knock out Golden Go in one shot, or 2 shots, or whatever, right? However, if you use this trick, they will not be able to get the knockout, right? Because you messed with their calcs. It's really big brain shit right here, so make sure to do that. Next up, we're almost done actually, because now we get to setup. Will you boost certain stats on your Pokemon? This is like, now we're getting into like the really niche optimization stuff, right? For example, if you have a Como and you use Clangerous Soul, for example, right? Not only are you gonna lose, how much, 33% of your health, I think, yeah? So that's already a way to optimize, if you optimize for that 33% health, right? But also, you're gonna boost each your stat, right? However, you will want to have even numbers, because then you boost your stat just a bit more. Because obviously, if you have your stat being like 1.5 or whatever, and then you double it, you have problems with rounding. However, if you just have even numbers, it will be way easier, right? So if you wanna boost the stat of your Pokemon, just use even numbers and you get a teeny tiny bit more of that stat, right? So if you wanna win games on just a sliver, go for it. Last but not least, you're probably sitting here with some leftover EVs, right? You already put in all the EVs you need. Where do I put the rest of my EVs? Well, it's simple. You just put them into the defensive stat that you haven't used yet, or or maybe you just put it in. I mean, me personally, I like to put it in the defensive stat that is higher because then you get more out of your EVs, right? But it's totally possible to put them the rest into attacking stats, for example, or just anywhere. Just keep it in mind for the next step, testing, because obviously you want to test your EVs. Not, how does the saying go, not a single artist fell from the sky or something. Fuck, I don't know. I don't know. Nobody was born a perfect EVer, right? It's all about trial and error. So testing your EVs is gonna be the difference between like a really good EV spread and like a really good EV spread, right? So what's really important is to keep in mind what EVs you put in what stat for what reason. Me personally, I don't, which is why I keep forgetting that I can change the EVs, right? So I would recommend you guys to write down what EVs you put in what stat for what reason, and then you can just go to the testing and make the best EV spread you want to make. And that's already everything. So, you guys have questions? Let me know in the comments, like, subscribe. But this video was such a pain to make. It took me like a year or something because I always procrastinated, you know. But now, with the new year, I got a suggestion for a new Year's revolution for you guys. Become better at EVing. Now, before I end the video, like me personally, obviously, I have never used this. I mean, obviously, I use the spreadsheet quite a bit in order to test it out and everything. But me personally, I don't really use it for one really good reason. I already know all of these things. This is one thing you gotta understand. Pokemon is all about knowledge and about thinking for yourself, or at least for me that is. Which is why I made this EV spread to make it easier for you. For example, with a Como example. How much HP investment do you want on a Como? Do you want the number to be divisible by 3? Do you want the number to be one lower than it is? One lower than a number that is divisible by 3? Let me know in the comments. Your time to think, right? So you really don't need the spreadsheet. It's a good reminder for you experts, but if you really want to make good EVs, it's just all about practice, right? However, the spreadsheet is going to be an absolute lifesaver because good EVs will not only be easy but also be fast. So the link to the spreadsheet is going to be in the description. If you want to use it yourself, send it to your friends and tell them, bro, this Harald 3D guy, I heard he makes some nice videos. And maybe there will be more tutorials in the future. Do you want to know how to get better at competitive Pokemon? Let me know. I'll make videos about it. Haut rein. Ciao.